Okay. The more I look at myself, because I have to when I do these things, I can see I need a haircut. Maybe that's what I'll do today if I get time. So we're on lesson number 215 of the workbook of A Course in Miracles. And I couldn't help but to read ahead last night, not through the review lessons, but to the beginning of the second part of the workbook, and where words will mean very little now. And you're beginning to see how little they actually mean in the sense of the lessons and the size that they are. We have all the concepts. We've been given all the concepts. And if we're reading in the text, we get daily. I mean, if you read the Course every day, some people do. Some people, if we read the Course every day, you're being constantly given the rationale, the reasonability, the motivation, simple reasoning from a divine mind, which always seems complex to the human mind. You're constantly being offered the reasonability of making this choice over the choice that you have previously been making. Or the truth of the matter is, what Jesus is saying is the choice that you've previously been making is no choice whatsoever, because it's a choice for nothing. And you wonder why your mind and heart, or why you wander aimlessly throughout the world, even though many of us have taken on jobs and responsibilities and we're able to meet those jobs and responsibilities. There's been this nagging sense of still something's missing, something's not right within our heart and our mind. Now, obviously, if what Jesus is saying is true, it's not that you merely made a wrong choice for something other than God. You made a choice for something other than God, but something other than God doesn't exist. So you made a choice for nothing. And the ego is dreaming a dream wherein which it sets you on a constant search for something that you can't find within it, because you're looking for something that you know not of in the midst of nothing, where there's nothing that can be known of, or nothing that could actually have been forgotten. Let's put it that way. There's nothing in the world of space and time that you could possibly have forgotten, because there's nothing in the world of space and time, and it's constantly over and past. So if there's something that you've forgotten that would help you remember who you are, it must be not in the world, because the world is composed of nothing. And if you're working in the world, if you're wandering aimlessly in the world, and you suffer from the pain of dim awareness, it's because you're looking for nothing. You're looking for something in the midst of nothing, and you cannot find it. And somewhere in your heart and your mind, you know all this is true, because you do know what that something is, although you haven't admitted it to yourself yet, because you haven't given up the futility of the search within the nothingness to allow your mind a moment's rest, so that what you're really looking for can make its way into your awareness. But I'm not a body, I'm free for that, and I'm still as God created me, and that's exactly why this is true. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. The Holy Spirit is my only guide. He walks with me in love, and I give thanks to him for showing me the way to go. For a while this morning, I was putting off doing this lesson, and I even thought that maybe, because nothing was coming to me. And then it was interesting, because there's been this conversation going on eternally, seems to be, with Brooke on Facebook. She reminded me of an experience I had. And there's another guy on Facebook who's not, he does not, he's an interesting guy. His mind is awakened. He's had, I would say, revelatory experiences of a secular nature. When we talk about people who are into secular spirituality that doesn't involve a God, let's say, that involves, the idea that there is only one mind, non-duality, teachings of singularity, non-dual teachings. An attempt to be secular because nobody really knows how to talk about this stuff. And a lot of these people had experiences and they had no further teacher and became teachers prior to their ability to understand. And I don't know how I got into this discussion, but this friend of mine who is of that school, but is awakened, he's more lighthearted in a sense, and he hears me. We've spoken on a number of occasions. He once called me one time, he said, I've just had a conversation with 3 people, and he's not one to believe A Course in Miracles, mostly because he sees it turns into a religion, and he knows that there's nothing in religion but a continuation of the denial that we've been utilizing in space and time within acceptable form to make it appear that we're actually trying to, find God. I just remembered, as a matter of fact, something when I read ahead last night. And it starts to talk about these involve a more direct approach to God. And it's interesting because at one point in time early on, when he was talking to Helen Billy, he talked a lot about Edgar Cayce. And Edgar Cayce did start study groups. I think they were called the Way to God study groups. And they sprung up all over the United States, and he had workbooks. And I'm not sure, I remember I had a couple of copies, if they were similar in the idea, similar in the sense, in the format, it was a precursor to A Course in Miracles almost. And Jesus mentions that if the people who are in charge of the Edgar Cayce material would do this, would finally let Jesus be their guide to the editing of what came through Edgar Cayce, you can put together a true faith, he calls that. Not a religion, but a true faith, a true way to God. And that's what Edgar Cayce was trying to teach people, a way to God. And so there are these groups that gathered around the United States, and they used these little leather-bound books. I think he has 3, The Way to God 1, Way to God 2, Way to God 3. And what's coming up reminded me very much of the perfected way to God that Edgar Cayce was attempting to offer those who trusted him. And they trusted him for good reason, because good information came through him. But of course, without the undoing of the ego in its entirety and total trust in God. And that's what this lesson is saying. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. The Holy Spirit is my only guide. He walks with me in love. And it was this gentleman that I was speaking of earlier. He called me and he said, I had 3 people here, young guys, and they keep on telling me that the question is, they having a discussion, and the question is it possible to do this without guidance? And I just laughed because I never questioned it. I never questioned the idea whether it was possible to do without guidance, because all I knew is without guidance I was not doing this. When I had no guidance, I was in the next lesson. I was crucifying myself, quite frankly. But love is the way I walk in gratitude whenever I follow the guidance that I'm giving from the guides that I have been given, not the guide that I gave myself in the ego. My experience is entirely different. And it is an experience of love, of myself just being love. In a sense, to us, it's like more like I understand what love is as I walk the world, and I could be grateful for everything that has helped me understand love is, which has been everything that's been offered to me and given to me. But the question he asked me was, is it possible to do anything again? I just laughed because I often didn't know how to answer him without using A Course in Miracles, and I knew that his understanding or the associations that he had with A Course in Miracles in his mind were not pure. And so when people utilized the Course and spoke to him in the Course, most people, they were just throwing concepts at him rather than experiences. And he associated more with, every other attempt of groups of people who hadn't had true experiences to come together and set up organizations in order to, legitimize what it is that they're doing and utilize it to the best of their ability in the world of space and time. And so he has that association in his mind with the Course in Miracles. And so I don't like to use Course terminology to talk to him at all, because it's a turnoff to him. And I like the guy. And I understand, blah, blah, his need to get over it. But I laughed. And I went out shopping a little later on, and I was walking down the aisle, and I was thinking about the question, and all of a sudden I started to laugh at the idea. This is something Brooke was talking about yesterday. When all of a sudden the tech crew opened my mind, and now you have to remember, I'm pushing a shopping cart. I'm pushing a shopping cart through the frozen food section, the back aisle of, there's all these walls of, frozen foods and milk and dairy products and yogurts and whatnot and cheeses. And I'm pushing a shopping cart, and I start to laugh at the idea of attempting to do this, attempting to be awakened, attempting to wake up, attempting to fulfill your function, whatever you want to call it, that occurs once you decide that the world is not your home and you want to, do what God has in store for you, fulfill the function that He's given you, rather than live like a good dying human being in the world of space and time. So I'm pushing the shopping cart, and I suppose I look like every other good dying human being in Quincy, Massachusetts, while I was pushing the shopping cart. You blend here anyway. And all of a sudden, the tech opened my mind, and they showed me this light grid. And I understood in that instant what they were showing me was how we were all joined by this grid of light. And we call it the Holy Spirit because it is the light, it is true light, and it joins us all as one. And it is like we're interconnected in this grid. And the grid is totally active all the time in everyone's life. The awareness of it is another story. And the participation is in it by giving it your own energy is ultimately the lesson. You turn your energy from the world of space and time to the Holy Spirit, and you become associated with the Holy Spirit and the energy of the grid of light, because our minds are not separate. So they showed me this grid. And I laughed because I saw the impossibility of doing anything, anywhere in space and time, without guidance. And it's interesting because the next lesson being, maybe I'll do 2 today, 216 as well. It can be but myself that I crucify. It's obvious we reverse the temporal order. This must be so. Because there is nothing that can crucify you, because there is only love. And you are that, and He walks with me in love. And I've never left love's presence except in my awareness, which produces consciousness of lack, in which I'm constantly looking to find something to fulfill that lack in the nothingness, in the nothingness of the dream that we've dreamt. I've dreamt, you dreamt, whatever, whoever. And here we are all the time walking with the Holy Spirit with love. He walks with me in love because there's no place else to be. And I give thanks to Him for showing me the way to go. The problem is that you never look around and see which way you're going and allow Him to show you the way. And there's bits of credit taking in the human mind is what I did. And every time we do that, we put another nail in our own coffin, in the cross that we're crucifying ourselves with. Because love is the way I walk. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. And the Holy Spirit isn't my only guide. Now, the Holy Spirit is totality, is the light of the totality that is brought with us, and it takes and it can be utilized. That like mind is the activating agent of spirit in that sense. So the mind that is healed has the ability to communicate with us through the Holy Spirit. And those other minds who are in a more advanced state of healing, much as Jesus would be, likewise has the ability to utilize the Holy Spirit's mind as the mind of communication, because he understands it and utilizes it and has added his energies energetically involved with it. And they showed me this, so I got back home. And so it was funny because all of a sudden when I came out of it, I was in the grid. They said, energize it. I said, energize? What are you talking about? Decker says, energize the grid. I said, what do you mean, energize the grid? So they said, energize the grid. So now suppose I was still pushing the push card. But as far as I was concerned, I was not, there was no space and time. There was my awareness, my consciousness in communication with the tech crew in, I don't know how you would say it, in the understanding and seeing of this grid. And they said, you energize it, go ahead and energize it. And all of a sudden I realized after asking them what they meant, and I said, really, me? I said, oh. And I could feel, much like Jesus said to the person who was healed, I could feel, Jesus said, who touched me? I felt my virtue go out. I could feel, oh my God, and this went out in the grid. There was the grid lit up. And I could see, and it's absolutely, everybody's connected, and I could see everybody has the same ability, just nothing different. The difference is in the awareness and the utilization of your mind to either energetically participate in the grid with the Holy Spirit as part of it, or turn your attention as your energy to the world of space and time, participate there, and in the world of lack, because what you're lacking is the entirety of reality in a dream of limitation based on limitations of your own thinking, blah, 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 the whole thinking. So when I saw this lesson, I did it because that's what it reminded me of. So I laughed and went back after I came out of this thing and in the back in a Stop and Shop, and all of a sudden I'm back, and now I know, when the light is, very obvious and active, because when you experience light, it's the absence of experiencing the body, but there's a certain sort of absence of definition as well. And then all of a sudden you come out of that and you're standing in this world of space and time and people with this memory. And I go, whoa. When I came out, I couldn't remember why I came to the store. I had to call Vicky and say, what the hell am I doing in Stop and Shop? And they just, so it's an interesting thing. But when you begin to have experiences where you see the Holy Spirit and the wholeness of spirit that we're all participating in, you see that it could always and only have been my guide. Because nothing, the world of space and time can guide you except unto itself. Nothingness, it begets itself. Now, you may not be aware of it, but when you become aware of it, there's been many attempts to talk about it. And Jesus does the best as far as I'm concerned. Most traditions don't have it because he found the way out through the utilization of it, rather than elevating the utilization of it to some holy patronage, some holy personality and space and time that's not you. That was not his purpose, idolization and the setting up of, hierarchies. That's the undoing. Hierarchies mimic the levels of space and time. There's another thing I was going to talk about. We'll get to that later. So, but I am not a body. I am free, for I am still as God created me. Love is the way I walk in gratitude. The Holy Spirit is my only guide. The Holy Spirit is all of our only guides. That does not mean that communication that comes from beyond space and time cannot come from other souls who are enjoined in this journey with us one way or the other, utilizing utilizing the intranet the incident at the light communication that we're all joined in, because we're all light. We communicate through light, and we know our own. That's vibratory frequencies, is all different ways to speak of it. But the Holy Spirit acts in all life, and when we become aware of it, all of a sudden you go, oh, it's been there all the time. And that goes to the next lesson. It would but be myself I crucify, and the way I crucify myself is by staying separate from the light that is with me all the time as the Holy Spirit, and in the condition of lacking the totality of everything as part of my awareness as I journey, feeling the weight of that lack, and constantly looking for it, although I know not what I seek for in the nothingness of space and time, I wind up thinking there are situations where I have to defend myself because something seems to have more. And maybe the more that it is that they have is what it is that I need. But it's that whole thought system that is crucifixion, because it's constant suffering from awareness of the fact that none of it's true. But if I forgive, salvation will be given to me. If I forgive, salvation will be given to me. Of course it will, because ultimately you forgive everything, and there's nothing left to forgive. And forgiveness leads you back to the recognition that you never left your own reality, which is the unity of your soul and all the souls in the mind of God as his creation, as his only son, designed to create exactly as he creates. It can be but myself I crucify. Of course, separation is crucifixion. It's a choice. Everything's a choice. You have to get to everything's a choice. And you have to stop looking outside for where the choice is being made, because the choice is already, you're already using the power of choice to look outside, to not use the power of choice in a true way. That might be more helpful to people who don't know, who miss the idea of choice. You're using choice. You're hiding the fact that you have a choice by living in the effects of a choice that you've made, in the unawareness of the fact that the real choice is down here as you deal with the effects. And this will take us back down into, and that's how we crucify ourselves, by ignoring the idea that the Holy Spirit is my only guide, and joining with that only guide. So you feel something's lacking in me. And that person seems to have more, because now we're judging. Something's lacking, I'm in judgment. What it is, everything's broken into the world of what is lacking in me. Because it doesn't make sense that everything is lacking in me. Because the minute that I thought that, I would say, oh, I must be, you cannot not be whole and perfect. You cannot not be separate from everything. We'll see. Of course, you can only attack yourself in separation and attack and suffering. It's the reassociation of your mind and that thinking. Whenever separation comes in, that's where my mind is wandering. And now we've associated everything good with God, and the point at which we're no longer experiencing the everythingness nature of the goodness of God and the abundance of the kingdom. We recognize that now we're in a condition of separation, and in that condition of separation, we understand all the effects that are happening. As we understand them, in the light of experiences of knowing we're whole and perfect, the experiences of knowing we're whole and perfect begin to take precedence in our thinking, and we question the totality of the reality of what seems to be a world wherein which the matching, the alignment's not taking place. And at some point in time, the shift occurs in the recognition that it is a dream and I'm the maker of the dream, but I am saved because the dream isn't real. And it happens as we forgive ourselves. All that I do unto myself, all that I do unto myself, all that I do unto myself can be but myself I crucify. If I attack, I suffer. If I forgive, salvation will be given to me. It's that simple. We're learning through versatile cause and effect, versatile effect and cause. We've given effect, causation, and an habituation of decision making, and an awareness of where the decision is being made, or how the decision is made, or why the decision is made. We don't know who we are, what the hell we're doing. And yet there's a constant decision being made in our mind as we're distracted and up here wondering what the hell's going on. We never go back to where the decision is being made. Okay, so that'll be enough for today. I didn't mean to go this long, sorry. This is lesson 215. And a little lesson 216, we'll see if it's enough for tomorrow.